Everybody knows that Christmas is a co-opted pagan holiday, right? Right? Is that right? It really isn't. This gets really, really interesting when we start talking about what is Christmas and why is Christmas when it is. Because, believe it or not, Christmas is on December 25th because of math, numerology, and magic. It's weird. It isn't really just a day. But we're going to talk about all of that today as we walk together down creation's path. Hello everyone, my name is Charlie, and I am a Christopagan druid and priest of Bridget.
Hello everyone, my name is Brian. I'm a Kohakian monkey lizard, and I am everywhere.
Oh, the Star Wars references, they do keep a coming. So today we're going to be talking about Christmas, the 12 days of Christmas, and why it is when it is, because there's a lot of very weird misinformation about this. It's because a lot of people don't know early Christian history for reasons. The early church was very complex, and that doesn't lead to the imperial notion of it was one tradition that was handed down from on high that has come to us uninterrupted and unchanged over thousands of years. Not true. Not true. In fact, our Christmas didn't start until about 325 AD.
Yeah.
So for around 320 some years after the date of the first Christmas, we didn't actually have Christmas. And it's complicated, and it involves numerology and weird Roman ideas about people. We'll get into all that in a second. Before we do, if you haven't already, like, subscribe, follow, whatever the terminology happens to be on whatever app you're listening to us on. We do original Christopagan and Druid content 5 days a week, Monday through Friday on this podcast that you don't want to miss anything that we're doing because we've got a lot of cool stuff coming. All right, let's get into it.
Do we want to start with just debunking some of the annoying modern contemporary added on beliefs that claim antiquity because Roman thought structures still pollute their imperial?
Well, it's 18th century stuff that is claimed to be Roman. Is Christmas Saturnalia only if you're really, really drunk? Okay, so Saturnalia was on the 21st or the 23rd or the 19th or the 18th or the 22nd.
Missed it by that much.
Were some of the traditions of Saturnalia adopted into Christmas? Probably. Gift giving and some of that stuff, probably. But again, we don't see a strong gift giving tradition until much later in history. So the connection between it and Saturnalia, really non-existent.
Just on the gift giving thing, if you go back to the Santa Claus episode, as we stated, Saint Nick started out as like a sea god that saved drowning people, not a gift giving deity of Christmas. So if this was all the way back before Saint Nick, gift giving was a thing, then Saint Nick would have started as a gift giver right from the beginning, not pulling sailors out of the water and saving people in that manner.
Also, gift giving and Christmas weren't really tied together until the Victorian era. And that's when a lot of the German traditions of St. Nicholas Day and Christmas got mixed in because Queen Victoria had a German husband. That's where we get a lot of our modern Christmas traditions from. The tree and everything, St. Nicholas and everything came in because everybody wanted to do whatever Queen Victoria was doing. Okay, so next myth. Christmas was set on December 25th because that was the day Mithras was born. This is the most shocking revelation in all of human history because we have no recorded history of any date on which Mithras was born. Not written down anywhere. There's no recording of that. So if you have evidence that they celebrated the birth of Mithras on December 25th, we need to get that to a university, get that to some scholars, and have them actually look into it. There's no recorded history that the birth of Mithras was celebrated on December 25th at all. So that's not true.
Is there a traditional birth date, or is that also all disputed? Because
it gets even more complex. The last one I want to debunk is it's Sol Invictus. Again, Sol Invictus was not December 25th. So again, if you're co-opting a pre-existing holiday, they missed the date on that as well.
What date is that one?
I believe that was also the 21st.
Okay. Which, once again, makes sense. This is winter solstice.
So yeah, this is the winter solstice, which was December 25th. because on the Roman calendar, all of the equinoxes and solstices were on the 25th of the month that they came on, regardless of what was happening in the sky, because they were legislated by the Roman Senate and they were celebrated on the 25th of the month. You can say that this was a solstice celebration, but that's also not why Christmas is on December 25th. The early church was extremely complex. There were a lot of arguments over holidays. Some of the biggest controversies were, of course, about Easter or Pascha, when Jesus was crucified and when was the resurrection. These are arguments that go all the way up into the 9th century and are not really resolved today, in that the Orthodox and the Christians celebrate two different Easters. That's because they're calculated differently. The Orthodox technically are trying to be more Jewish in how they calculate the date of the Passover and thus Easter, except for they're not using the Hebrew calendar. They're still using the Julian calendar, so it doesn't align even with the Jewish dates, which honestly, the Jewish calendar was still in use if they wanted it to be on the same day as Passover. That would have been easily accomplished, but anti-Semitism would not allow for that. So there were a lot of controversies there. And then there was the question of what other dates in Christ's life were important. None of the early accounts that we have talk about his birth at all. His birth was seen as a secondary whatever, because the important date was, when did the angel appear to Mary? This sparked so many controversies and arguments because we have a date for when she goes to visit her cousin. Based off of the dates there, Jesus was probably born in September. But again, no Jews were consulted in understanding the Hebrew calendar, which is referenced in this story. So arguments ensued trying to figure this out. And different dates were proposed for what is the most likely time that this could have happened. And then Roman numerology and Roman religion really stepped in. So yes, paganism had a part to play in why all of these dates are what they are, but not the way people think it did. Jesus was believed to have been conceived, that the Archangel Gabriel appeared to Mary on March 25th, because if you remember, all solstices and equinoxes are on the 25th, and that is the vernal equinox or spring, the beginning of spring. Because wouldn't the Son of God be born on the first day of spring, be conceived on the first day of spring? Doesn't that just make sense? Wouldn't that have to be the thing? And Hippolytus really pushed this idea and got it kind of cemented into thought in the early 300s, so the 4th century. Up until this, all kinds of arguments, all kinds of dates are proposed. But the date that they're arguing over is not when Christmas is. It's when did the archangel appear to Mary? When did Jesus enter her womb? What was the date he entered human history? Okay, so December 25th, still not in the story. We're still on March 25th. A perfect person in Roman numerology had a perfect life, which also is why March 25th is really important, because March 25th was at the time believed to be the date that he was crucified, because a perfect person is born and dies on the same day. This is kind of what wins the argument is, look, it's so numerologically perfect. It's the vernal equinox, the beginning of new life. So of course, the Son of God was conceived on this day. He died or resurrected. There are different arguments, but I believe Hippolytus believed he was resurrected on that day. I believe it's actually supposed to be Easter Day. On that day, sheer and utter perfection, beginning of spring, God enters the world. God is resurrected in the world. How perfect is that? This is the argument that is made. This is the actual argument that's made. A perfect person also is in the womb for exactly 9 months. Well, let's count 9 months from March 25th. Oh, look, there's December 25th. And thus, the date of Christ's birth is put on the calendar. The focus was not on when was he born, it was on when was he conceived and when did he die. And that, because of, again, of Rome, the way the Romans conceived of a perfect life, dictated other dates. Now, having said that, Christmas becomes hugely controversial because every community went, oh, that's brilliant. We'll celebrate the birth of Jesus. And everybody celebrates it differently. Some celebrated it as a triduum. And if you are have been in the Catholic Church, you still know about the Triduum of Christmas. It's the 3 days. But even it has problems because is it the 3 days leading up to or the 3 days after? Or is it the second of the 3 days? When does it start? Because there are different traditions about that. Some traditions turned it into a novena because 9 is a very important number. So it's the 9 days leading up to Christmas or the 9 days after Christmas. But the most holy number is 12, which was used to calculate other things like when was Jesus baptized? When did the wise men come? Well, obviously, a perfect person with a perfect life, these are kind of the same things. These are the revelation of the Son of God to people. So they had to have happened on the same day. Oh, and because 12 is such an important number, it is a number of revelation, it is a number of community, it is a number of wholeness and togetherness. So 12 days after Christmas must have been the day that he was baptized. So he was born 12 days later. We have him being baptized. We have the Magi coming to visit him. We have the Epiphany, which is the Epiphany because it's basically everything that Jesus did to reveal that he was God. There, one day. Sometimes the wedding of Cana, the first miracle at the wedding of Cana is put on this day. Sometimes it's going a different date. So now we have all of our things on the calendar because of Roman numerology. And then Pope Gregory happens. Pope Gregory throws the biggest stone in the world in that he goes, our calendar is wrong, because it was. The calendar was not only drifting, but at this point, I can't even remember how many days the Roman year had because various emperors and senators just started tacking days on because, oh, we don't have enough money or things set up for this festival. So we're going to add a special week to the calendar so that that festival technically doesn't happen for another week. This is why when people learn Latin for the first time, they get very confused because they're like, December, Decem, 10, that's our 12th month. Yes, 2 whole months had been added to the calendar by this point. The month of July, which was dedicated to Julius Caesar, and the month of August, which was dedicated to Caesar Augustus. 2 months had been added just willy-nilly boop, into the middle of the calendar, which shoved all of the other dates off, which is why September is the 7th month. That's literally what September means, is now the 9th month and blah, blah, blah. Okay, here we are. All of our calendars are perfect. Everything's working. And the date of Christmas is getting later and later and later in the year. All of the holidays are getting later and later and later in the year because they're not aligned to the sun. And so Pope Gregory decides, not only am I going to change the calendar, I'm going to name it after myself because I'm so great, which he is known as St. Gregory the Great because he called himself that. Oh, and here we are. We have a new calendar that is instituted, the Gregorian calendar. It's one we're still using for the most part today. We've tweaked it a little bit here, there, and yonder, but for the most part, it's the calendar that we're all used to. 4-year cycles of leap days getting added. But to bring the calendar into alignment, several days were pulled off of the calendar. How many days? 12. 12 days were pulled off of the calendar. And by that, I don't mean the year was shortened by 12 days. I mean, they just went, okay, today is this date. Tomorrow is 12 days earlier. They just blooped the calendar date, which again, people really weren't using the calendars for a lot of things. So the average person didn't care, had no idea. That's why such a dramatic change could happen, because for the average person, work days didn't really exist in the way that we think of them today. Scheduling didn't exist the way we think of it today. Nobody cared. So he moved the calendar, and the Orthodox Church went, the Julian calendar works fine for us. No. So that's why their Easter, their Christmas and everything is 12 days off from ours, because they didn't switch over to the Gregorian calendar. They still use the Julian calendar for all religious purposes. And so the dates are off. Okay, got it. Well, then we have the problem of when does a day start? Most of the world viewed a day starting at night. When the sun goes down, it is the new day. This is still true in the Hebrew calendar. This was true in the Celtic calendars. This was true in most world calendars, not all, but a lot of world calendars at this time. So this is why you see a lot of Eve celebrations on the calendar, because that's literally when the festival started. That's why you have Halloween. That's why you have Christmas Eve. That was Christmas night. The Romans didn't do day like that. Day like all things in Rome was legislated. So when do these days start and when do they end? And so for us and our purposes, we have the 12 days of Christmas coming up. Some people still practice that as the 12 days leading up to Christmas. I think that's bizarre because you're still in the middle of Advent.
Yeah. This is still prep time, dang it. I got cookies to make.
And I know that this is very Catholic of me, but if you look at a Catholic calendar, Christmas is the 12 days after.
By the way, for those of you listening to this episode in the evening, Merry Christmas! Sun has set. Congratulations, if you go by that standard. If not, it's not quite Christmas yet. Happy Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
Either way, because this is that both and thinking.
Yeah.
Both. It is all just made up, and there are various multiple different traditions, and they're all viable and acceptable in their own right and way.
I know it feels like we're taking a lot of time to just talk about this, but there is so much misinformation about all of this. And one, none of it really matters. Like some of the weird propaganda stuff matters because the Mithras one bothers me the most.
Yeah.
Because you're pretending to know something that nobody knows. It was a mystery religion. A lot of it was not written down, but also what was written down, we have no records to show that ever happened.
Yeah. If for some reason you actually have that record, please do turn it over.
Yeah.
The world wants this. We all want this.
That would be wonderful. But it is a way to discredit a colonizing religion. And I get that Christianity has done a lot of colonizing and people want to attribute all of it to colonizing. But that is not true.
Here.
This was the...
Yeah. This is why, like, once again, I like to speak in terms of that both and thinking. Like, yes, there were a lot of wrongs the imperial church did, a lot of colonizing efforts. And we still need to be honest about stuff. And this wasn't one of them. Let's not persecute them for the innocent stuff. Yes, there's made up stuff in here and math and stuff, but a lot of the other traditions also had made up stuff and weird math because a lot of it works off of symbolism. And as we pointed out before, a lot of the other ones were dates around Christmas, and they may have borrowed from some of the other traditions or had local flavors that became more popular, like you said, like with the Christmas tree and stuff, where that was more some of the local Druidic traditions that got brought over, and it became super popular because celebrity with Queen Victoria.
Yule was, it still is, the 21st. Yes, a lot of this got conflated, a lot of this got mixed together, but it is a weird thing to try to argue that all of this was stolen when you're really giving the short end of the stick to a lot of monks who gave valiant fights and arguments over that, no, I did the astrological table and it had to be this. Because, by the way, there was actually a lot of that too, where I did Jesus's birth chart and they tried to reverse engineer for that. What would the birth chart of the Son of God look like? Okay, so what date would that have been? Like, so much astrology and numerology went into determining, again, March 25th, which was the date that they were hunting for, the conception, when the angel appeared to Mary, and then reverse engineering the rest of the calendar from there.
You still even get modern astronomy math arguments. There's a lot of math and stuff. You're given props for all that work and effort. One of the things I always find fascinating is when in astronomy, a lot of that starts pointing towards a September birth. It all gets
everything gets weird. Yeah, everything gets weird.
Complex math.
Because we know that Mary was pregnant for about 3 months before she went to, according to the story, before she went to visit her cousin Elizabeth. And Elizabeth's husband, Zechariah, was in Jerusalem on the course of Abia. And when you start doing the math out of that, because we actually know what time of year that was, again, going off of 9 months in the womb, Jesus probably would have been born sometime in September. We're about to get into the 12 days of Christmas, which are going to take us from Christmas Day through to the Epiphany. Now, again, when do you celebrate Epiphany? Again, there's questions about, is it the 6th or the 7th? I converted to Catholicism in my teens, in my late teens, early adulthood.
To 5th or 6th because of the Eve.
Okay, so I'm going to ask, do you leave that in? So, yes, but, okay, in Catholicism, there is a question of the 5th or the 6th, but because of some people who are trying to say that the first of the 12 days is the date after Christmas.
Okay, I get what you're saying, because they go, Christmas needs to be Christmas.
Christmas is Christmas, yes.
Day 1 starts the 26th and goes to the 7th. Man, maths are fun.
Yeah, to this day, we're arguing over the numerology of this holiday because it is built on numerology. It is baked into the cake of this holiday. So you will see dates for the 12 days of Christmas that have it end anywhere from the night of the 5th through the 7th. Any of those days you will see as the last day of the 12 days of Christmas because of the arguments of, is Christmas Day day 1 or day 0? How do you count the days?
And here I'm going to ask everyone to take a moment for a fun exercise. If you heard, like, for instance, the 7th, and you suddenly had a strong reaction to that number, take a moment for a little meditation on why you had that strong feel. Odds are it's because your personal tradition ends on a different date, and that is the only reason why you had a strong attachment to it, which is a great exploration and an exercise to help break free of various thought constructs. Because even myself, I'm used to the Epiphany being on the 6th, and the 6th is the end of Christmas. So let's get our Yule Brenner on. So let it be written. So let it be done. That is why. And it's okay because, like, even I had that reaction. But it's also good to take that moment and be better, because better is better.
This is where we can be very ecumenical about this. I don't think it matters. I honestly don't think it matters. If you're celebrating Christmas on the 25th, or if you're celebrating it on the 7th, actually this year, if you're on the Orthodox calendar, because of the way the Julian calendar and the Gregorian calendar interact.
I laughed. I feel like I need to take a moment. All love to my Orthodox brethren. I know I give you guys a lot of grief about not being able to count correctly and being bad at math, but I do it. It is in all jest and love.
So it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. This is not, to me, when we're talking about trying to time things to the moon or to the sun, that matters because we're literally drawing on the energy of that event, that cosmic event we're trying to connect to. So the precision there is only semi-important because there's actually a moment of equinox, for example. There's a moment of solstice. You can actually calculate this down to the minute to the second.
Yeah.
And even further. Very often, that moment is either way into the AM or into the afternoon. There's an actual point at which it happens. If you're really into it, time your stuff exactly for those points. There's a moment of peak full moon. If that matters to you, look it up, use it. It's great.
Yeah. If it doesn't, it's great too. This is why, like, you look back to our Grimoire episode and some of our previous stuff. This is definitely an individual practitioner bit. It's nice if you want to tie your energies to the energies of a lot of other people, picking the more popular day, maybe why you would want to do that then. But once again, that's also individual practitioner.
The biggest drive for me on the Christmas and the 12 days of Christmas is the culture I live in. I live in North America. I live in the United States. We have the federally recognized holiday of the 25th. I do not see a reason for it to be day 0. I just personally do not. I have always celebrated the 12 days of Christmas as the first, starting on December 25th and going through to January 6th. And each day has something to it. And we're going to be talking about that because we're going to be doing the 12 days of Christmas on this podcast. So you're going to be getting episodes straight through the 12 days from us. There's going to be some hard topics in here because Christmas is not just peace and light. Because we're going to talk about the Holy Innocents. We're going to talk about the martyrdom of St. Stephen, which are celebrated during Christmas time, where we're going through all 4 paths. Because when we talk about the 4 paths of creation spirituality, they are built into everything. They're even built into Christmas. And for me, the 12 days of Christmas saved Christmas. December 25th was traditionally about being around people that you probably didn't want to be around. I know a lot of the people that I had to be around on Christmas Day were people I didn't want to be around, whether that was people from our church community that I didn't get along with or family members that I really didn't get along with that I just kind of had to be there around. It was so much hustle and bustle and everybody so worried about table dressings and decorations and food on the table. And Christmas had become kind of a nightmare for many, many, many years before I started my deconstruction. It was the celebration of the 12 days that made this a meaningful holiday for me. There are a lot of ways to practice it. We don't practice it the same every year. And as you will see over the course of this podcast, we will do it a little bit different every year, but we want it to be very kind of traditional this year, since this is our first year on the podcast doing the 12 days. So we're going to be talking about the traditional holidays that line up throughout this period. And I hope that you come along on the journey with us. It's going to be a very, I say traditional, but it's going to be a very Christopagan with some Druid stuff thrown in for spice, because that's who we are. And Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
May you make merry and have a amazingly fun holiday, because remember, Christmas is not a day for solemnity. It is a day for revelry. I think that's the best way to put it. So revel, get your revels on.
And if this is new to you, congratulations. If you're like me and you love an excuse for a party, now you get to party on the 25th, the 26th, the 27th, the 28th, right? The 30th, the 31st, which most people celebrate 31st Sunday after New Year's Eve. The 1st, which often is a much more solemn celebration as you're recovering and recuperating from the 31st's revelry. The 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, the 6th. And if you really want, the 7th also, because it's another excuse for another party. Party.
And hey, if you want to just overdo it, then you get through this, and then you celebrate Orthodox Christmas, and then do the 12 days after that. You have a whole month of parties. Oh, which I do not recommend. Could be fun, but I really don't recommend. All right. So I hope that you have enjoyed this episode. It was a lot of math. It was a lot of timing, but I think a lot of people have misunderstood this intentionally. Like, if you thought any of the things that we tried to debunk in here were true, that's not an aspersion on your character. A lot of people with ulterior motives have pushed these ideas in the past and continue to push these ideas going forward. It's frustrating because they're not something that you can actually cite. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, I can't show you the book that shows that we don't know the date of Mithras' birth because we don't know the historical date of Mithras' birth.
Yeah.
And so the duty of proof is really on those people that are claiming that they can.
Yeah.
Or also those people that are trying to say that this was Horus's birth or Osiris's birth. No, that's not true either. So many things try to get conflated on this day. It's ridiculous. Just brace yourself, because when we get closer to Easter, we're going to be doing a major debunking of Ostara, because I have issues there. But
well, once again, when you're talking about motives, a lot of the cases I've run into, I won't say all, but I'll say a lot of them, it's almost like they have little brother syndrome, where it's like, I get it. You've been slighted, you've been wronged, but not everything is a slight and a wrong. Not just pick certain battles, because once you're on a crusade, you're going to end up sacking the wrong city. You're going to try to persecute a bunch of the wrong people.
Pick the battles that are worth fighting, and this really
isn't one of them. There's a lot of injustices out there. Like, if you need to fight injustice, there are plenty to pick. You can go for some of the big ones if you feel like you really need to fight. Like, go after misogyny or something else that really needs to be addressed and fought after.
Because, there's a lot of misogyny around this holiday. We haven't even gotten to the fun parts of our practice. Like, was Bridget there at the birth of Christ? A lot of Irish Catholics would say yes. There's a lot of things that you could fight for.
Yep.
And of course, the goddess was there. She's the goddess of childbirth. Why wouldn't she be there at the birth of the Son of God? It only makes sense. But hey, maybe that's just the name. I would love to know your thoughts about this. Do you celebrate the 12 days of Christmas? What part of this did you maybe not know? I'm really curious. Do you have any other questions that you would like to hear us answer about this or any other holiday? How are you going to be celebrating the 12 days of Christmas this year? Let us know in the comments. If you're listening to us on YouTube or Spotify, you leave a comment right there. If you're listening to us anywhere else, even if they said that you can leave a comment, they won't let us know. So you can leave a comment there anyway, because we engage in this magic. Then head over to creationsfast.com, click on chat, and you can leave us a comment there, and we will be able to see it and get back to you. I'm just really curious, because I don't think that a lot of people really know about the 12 days. While you're there, if you have a few dollars you can pass our way, think about joining a membership. That really does help us out a lot. You can also support us on Patreon and Ko-fi. I am CE Dorset on both. That money goes a long way to help us keep the lights on, keep a roof over our heads, and food on our tables. Thank you so much to everybody who does that, including our latest annual member. And if you don't have any money, don't worry about it. Trust me, I feel your pain. You can help us by spreading the word about what we're doing, because we do this out of the love of doing it. And the more people that know what we're doing and that we can bring in and share all of this with, the better. Thank you so much.
And as The night approaches, and the lights of Christmas penetrate the night sky. And out on a lawn, a clatter arises. May the spirit of Santa Claus visit everyone, bringing joy and good things. Amen.
Amen.